Let me tell you something that might sting a little at first. Nobody cares about you. Not the way you think they do, not the way your mind convinces you when you hesitate, overthink, or hold yourself back. That voice in your head that says, what will they think? What if I fail in front of everyone? What if they judge me? Here's the truth. They're not thinking about you. They're too busy thinking about themselves. And once you really understand this, not just intellectually, but deeply, you stop playing small. Because most people live their entire lives inside an invisible cage, a cage built from imagined judgment. They don't start the business. They don't approach the opportunity. They don't say what they really feel. Why? Because they believe there's an audience watching, waiting, judging. But there isn't. And that realization, that's not depressing. That's freedom. Think about it. Every time you held yourself back, every time you stayed silent when you wanted to speak, every time you didn't take the risk, it wasn't because you couldn't. It was because you thought someone somewhere would care enough to judge you. But they don't. And even if they do, it's temporary. People forget. People move on. People are consumed by their own problems. So why are you living your life like you're on stage when the audience isn't even paying attention? This is where your power begins. Because if nobody cares, then you're free. Free to fail, free to look stupid, free to try again, free to reinvent yourself as many times as it takes. No permission needed, no approval required, just action. And here's the uncomfortable part. If nobody cares about you, then nobody is coming to save you either. Nobody is coming to suddenly appear and fix your life. No one is going to hand you discipline, confidence, or success. It's on you. All of it, your habits, your mindset, your future. That responsibility can feel heavy, but it's also where your control comes from, because if it's all on you, then it's all in your hands. You don't need to wait. You don't need validation. You don't need the perfect moment. You just need to decide. Most people are addicted to approval. They post for validation. They speak for applause. They live for recognition. And the problem with that, you become a slave to other people's opinions. Your mood depends on their reactions. Your confidence depends on their approval. That's not power. That's dependence. But when you truly accept that nobody cares, something shifts. You stop asking, do they like me? And you start asking, do I respect myself? You stop chasing attention and start building substance. You stop performing and start becoming. Because at the end of the day, the only person who has to live with your decisions is you, not them, not the crowd, not the people you're trying to impress, just you. So why are you living for them? Why are you shaping your life around opinions that don't even last 24 hours? Why are you delaying your potential because of people who aren't thinking about you in the first place? You have this one life, and most of it is going to be spent inside your own mind. So make it a place of strength, make it a place of honesty, make it a place where you don't need permission to act. There's something powerful that happens when you stop caring about being judged. You start doing the things that actually matter. You take risks, you speak honestly, you build relentlessly, not because it looks good, but because it's who you are. And yes, you will fail. You will have moments where things don't work, where you feel exposed, where you question yourself. But here's the difference. You won't stop because you're no longer doing it for them. That's a shift from external validation to internal standards, from seeking approval to building self-respect. And self-respect is earned. It comes from doing the hard things when no one is watching. It comes from showing up when it's inconvenient. It comes from keeping promises you made to yourself, not for applause, not for recognition, but because you said you would. Nobody cares if you wake up early. Nobody cares if you train hard. Nobody cares if you stay disciplined, but you will. And over time, that becomes your edge, while everyone else is waiting for motivation, waiting for approval, waiting for the right moment. You're already moving quietly, consistently, relentlessly, and one day people will notice. But by then, it won't matter anymore because you didn't build your life for their attention. You built it for your own standard. So stop waiting, stop hesitating, stop living like you're being watched. Start living like you're free, because you are. Nobody cares. Freedom in indifference sounds harsh at first. It almost feels like a negative statement, like something is missing. But in reality, it's the opposite. It's the removal of something that was never real to begin with, the imaginary pressure of being constantly watched, judged, and evaluated. Most people walk around with this invisible weight on their shoulders. They think every move they make is being noticed. Every mistake is being recorded. Every awkward moment is being remembered. But that's not reality. That's ego mixed with fear. The truth is, people are not paying attention to you the way you think they are. They might glance at, they might notice for a second, then they go right back into their own world, their own problems, their own insecurities, their own thoughts. And once you truly understand it, something shifts inside you. You stop asking for permission. You stop overanalyzing every small decision. You stop replaying conversations in your head at night, wondering if you sounded stupid. because you realize it doesn't matter. That mental space you used to waste on imagined judgment, it becomes available again. And now you can use it for something productive, building, learning, taking action. Think about how many opportunities people miss because they're afraid of looking foolish. They don't start the YouTube channel because what will people say? They don't go to the gym because what if someone judges me? They don't speak up because what if I'm wrong? But here's the reality. Even if someone does judge you, it's temporary. People forget quickly, faster than you think. That moment you've been overthinking for days, the other person probably forgot it within minutes. So why are you letting something so temporary control something so permanent in your life? Indifference gives you permission to act, not recklessly, but honestly. It allows you to try without the constant fear of embarrassment. It allows you to fail without attaching your identity to it. It allows you to grow without needing approval at every step. And this is where real confidence is built, not from success alone, but from repeated exposure to situations where you realize nothing bad actually happens when you stop caring so much. You start small. Maybe you speak a little more openly. Maybe you take a small risk. Maybe you put your work out there even if it's not perfect. And each time the world doesn't collapse, no one is pointing fingers, no one is keeping score. And slowly you start to trust yourself more than the opinions of others. That's freedom. Not the absence of fear, but the understanding that fear is based on something that isn't even real. When you embrace indifference, you stop living for the audience in your head, and you finally start living for yourself. There's a moment in life that changes everything. It's not dramatic. No one announces it, but it hits you quietly. No one is coming to save you. At first, that realization feels heavy, almost unfair. You start thinking, why is everything on me? Why do I have to figure this out alone? But if you stay with that thought a little longer, it begins to transform, because hidden inside that weight is power. See, as long as you believe someone else is responsible for your life, you stay stuck. You blame your situation, you blame your past, you blame other people, your environment, your luck, and maybe some of those things are real. But here's the problem. If they control your life, then you don't. And that's a dangerous place to live, because it means you're waiting for things to change, waiting for someone to help, waiting for the right time. But the right time doesn't come. It's created, and it's created by the person who decides to take responsibility completely. Not partially, not when it's convenient, fully, for your habits, for your decisions, for your discipline, for your future. That's where the shift happens, the moment you say, this is on me, not as a burden, but as ownership. Because ownership changes how you move. When something is yours, you treat it differently. You stop making excuses, you stop negotiating with your goals, you stop waiting for motivation. You act because you have to, and here's the paradox. The more responsibility you take, the more control you feel, and the more control you feel, the more confident you become. Not fake confidence, real confidence, the kind that comes from knowing, if something goes wrong, I'll figure it out. That's power. It's not about having everything perfect. It's about knowing you can handle imperfection. Most people avoid responsibility because they think it will limit them. But the opposite is true. Responsibility expands your options, because now you're not relying on external factors. You're not waiting for someone else's approval. You're not depending on ideal conditions. You become the variable that changes the outcome. And that's when life starts to shift, slowly at first, but better habits, stronger discipline, clear thinking, then faster, more opportunities, more momentum, more results, not because the world suddenly became easier, but because you became stronger. And here's the most important part. When you take full responsibility, you remove the biggest excuse you've ever had. You can't blame anyone anymore, which means you can finally build the life you've been thinking about, because now it's not up to them, it's up to you. There comes a point where you have to stop looking around and start looking in the mirror, because as long as you believe your life is controlled by something outside of you, other people, circumstances, luck, you give away the very thing you need most control. And without control, you stay stuck. It's easy to say, this happened because of them. It's easy to say, I'll start when things get better. But easy doesn't build anything, ownership does. Real power begins the moment you take full responsibility for your life, not just the good parts, but everything. Your failures, your habits, your missed opportunities, not because it's your fault, but because it's your responsibility to fix it. And that's a hard distinction most people don't understand. You might not be responsible for where you started, but you are responsible for where you end up. And once you accept that, something shifts. You stop waiting, because there's no one left to wait for. No mentor is coming to knock on your door. No perfect opportunity is going to land in your lap. No sudden wave of motivation is going to carry you forward. It's just you, your discipline when you don't feel like it, your consistency when no one is watching, your decisions when it's inconvenient. That's where your life is shaped. And here's where it gets powerful. When you take responsibility, you eliminate excuses. And when excuses disappear, progress begins. Because now every action is if you wake up late, it's on you. If you skip the work, it's on you. If you stay distracted, it's on you. And that might sound intensely, but it's also incredibly freeing, because if it's on you, then you can change it immediately. You don't need permission. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need anyone else to agree. You just need to act. That's what power actually looks like. Not control over everything, but control over yourself, your mindset, your actions, your standards. And over time, that control compounds. Small disciplined actions turn into habits. Habits turn into identity. Identity turns into results. And suddenly your life starts to reflect your choices, not your excuses. Conclusion: nobody cares, so build anyway. At the end of it all, you come back to the same truth. Nobody cares, not in the way you feared, not in the way that's been holding you back. And once you accept that, everything becomes simpler. You stop performing. You stop hesitating. You stop waiting for validation that was never coming, and you start building relentlessly on your own terms. Because if nobody is watching, you're free to become whoever you want. And if nobody's coming to save you, you're forced to become someone who can save themselves. That's where real strength is built, and not in approval, but in ownership. So take responsibility, take control, take action, and build a life that doesn't need an audience to matter. Because in the end, nobody cares, and that's exactly why you should.